It's absolutely shocking to see near universal distaste for most Blizzard products. From games I've never played like World of Warcraft, to games I've given a thorough shake like Diablo 4, entirely reverse into oozing positivity in a span of time shorter than a crack of thunder. It's not just regular players either. It's avid players on popular forums like Reddit. It's your favorite massive guild or clan community on Discord. It's smaller content creators like Quinn69 and absolutely massive ones like Asmongold and Darth Microtransaction. People are no longer hitting up Path of Exile, thoroughly testing last Epoch as it nears its official release date, or grinding away endlessly in Torchlight Infinite. Plenty of them, especially the drivers of entertainment in the ARPG scene, are playing Diablo 4 and its latest update, the Season of Blood. The patch brought plenty of good stuff to the game, and a tremendous amount of players are having more fun than they were in the past. That's good. However, many still dislike the game and play it, and many who absolutely hated the game are playing and praising it now. Why? Almost any other game with a launch like this would have died on release and never been resurrected. This isn't isolated to Diablo 4. This, my fellow exiles and heroes of numerous other realms, is the Blizzard Paradox. We've just hit its latest incarnation with Diablo 4. In this video, we are exploring this vicious cycle, why it exists, and if it'll ever be broken, or if it will continue onward while we plod on toward the end of all things. But before we do, please subscribe and like after you've watched the full video if you enjoyed it. I appreciate all your support. Chapter 1. Games can change. That's good. Diablo 4 was not a good game on release. Regardless, millions, if not tens of millions of people played, purchased, and praised Blizzard for their latest ARPG creation. At least initially. At a rapid rate, players casual and hardcore, famous and streetwalkers like you and me began to realize the game's flaws, of which there were a ton. A ton that shouldn't have existed in a game developed by a company as titanic and experienced as Blizzard. I could simply show the legendary Quinn69 hardcore death and be done with it, but I shan't. Players who reached the endgame realized how shallow its content loop and depth truly was. Sure, many people enjoyed the story, the campaign, and the first hours in the open world, but all that grew stale and was incredibly repetitive, even for an ARPG. Nightmare Dungeons had almost no variety, especially when it came to the bosses characters ended up fighting. The events inside of dungeons were also tedious, requiring players to collect bloodstone shards and place them on pedestals, rescue prisoners, or just kill waves of enemies in an area for a bit. This was way too forced for most avid ARPG players, which is saying something. Players began to understand the lack of creative itemization and short list of interesting builds to play, quite quickly into the Season 2. Most people would feasibly max out their items by around level 75, and with the utmost ease, as there wasn't much fine-tuning that could be done with a lack of crafting in the game. On top of that, only one or two builds could reasonably compete in the premier endgame content, Nightmare Dungeons, and most people were pushed to those builds if they wanted to be as powerful as their friends. There needed to be a larger variety of builds that could fulfill the ultimate power fantasy most people pursue in an ARPG. I could go on. I will. Players couldn't juggle all the items the game was giving them due to limited inventory and stash tab space. When complaints mounted, Blizzard explained the reason more stash tabs weren't possible was because every time someone saw another character in the open world, they loaded every piece of data related to that character, including their stash tabs. They couldn't add more stash tabs because the amount of data loaded would be far too much during every player interaction. You also couldn't search or sort your stash. Players struggled to pursue many of the systems at hand and felt shoehorned into a single content type, Nightmare Dungeons. There was a huge open world, but most of it was worthless or unfun. World bosses either dropped in seconds when lots of people were playing, or were unbeatable when the servers lost most of their players partway through the season. Players discovered uber uniques weren't just chase items, they were unobtainable artifacts that they'd only be able to read about on a wiki page or Reddit thread. They were also untradeable. This meant you could never plan a build around one of these uber uniques, or, really, work your way to one ever if that was to remain the vision of the D4 developers, Blizzard. Players didn't enjoy the one real challenge at the end of the game, Uber Lilith, and really sought more bosses to fight besides her. They wanted decent bossing in their ARPG. Wild. There were a set of bosses players fought in the campaign that could be juiced up just like Lilith was. Those could then serve as other Uber bosses. That, sadly, wasn't the case at launch. Plus, Uber Lilith was really just a challenge, and a buggy one at that. Nothing statistically worthwhile dropped from the most formidable challenge in Diablo 4. True blasphemy in an action role-playing game. Players just stopped playing and came to the depressing realization that many of the glaring problems were probably going to be addressed in paid Diablo 4 expansions, if at all. To get the full experience every season, you'd need to have bought the base game, the seasonal battle pass, and then, whenever they released, the yearly expansions. This dropped player morale and enjoyment even further. While the release of Season 1 addressed very few of the game's largest issues, Season 2 actually did improve the game in a variety of ways. Dan Carlin of Hardcore History often uses this quote that's attributed to John Maynard Keynes. "When the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do, sir?" This is how we should all live our truths, and it's how I'll represent my view of Diablo 4. It's better. Really. Blizzard made improvements, changes recommended by the community, and changes they thought up themselves. That's good. Truly. They added 5 new Uber bosses to the game. Each boss has a unique drop table, and one of them, Uber Duriel, even drops the once ungodly rare Uber Uniques. They addressed all the issues players had with the horse mount, making it much more usable and greatly improving on the flow and feel of it in-game. They fixed resistances, even though they never truly admitted they were completely bugged and almost non-existent since the game's start. And though there are other good updates, they also diversified which content in the game was rewarding. Nightmare dungeons are no longer the be-all, end-all content in the game, even though they might technically be the most viable for the largest number of players. All of this is good. I would like Diablo 4 to continue to improve. It drives competition in the rest of the industry. Truly, it makes the game I enjoy most right now, Path of Exile, better, and I'm sure it's pushing the last Epoch developers to improve their soon-to-be-released product too. However, I just hope that Blizzard's competition gets a fair shot, even if that's just a hopeful stretch. It's definitely challenging to battle a super-powered Goliath when you're an underpowered David, especially when the Goliath has the backing, intentional or not, of the most influential gaming creators of all time. Chapter 2: Profit or All. Money makes the world go round, and the Blizzard name prints money. People didn't just return because Diablo 4 improved between release, Season 1, and Season 2. A select batch returned because it was a smart financial decision to do so. I should know. It's one of the reasons I'm making this video. Provocative stream and video titles, enticing tweets, and big promises from huge names bring tons of people to games. This includes basically everything made by Blizzard, from Overwatch 2 to Diablo 4. Diablo 4 is currently the recipient of a massive amount of this sort of attention, as it was when it first released. Plenty of people are returning to the game because of all the good changes the developers made with the launch of Season 2, but plenty of creators are also returning because it's financially smart. People absolutely love to watch and listen to people play or talk about Blizzard games. There's a near unmatched audience for this in the ARPG space. For those who have the time to play Diablo 4, critique it, react to tons of videos about it, and really milk it for every last ounce of content, it's extremely valuable, especially given it's such a bore to some people, like me, who don't really want to do that. My space is quite niche on this topic, comparing games I enjoy to this one game I don't right now. People who really do enjoy it for just enough time to seem legit, or people who act like they enjoy it, though. Now, that's not a niche. That's an actually decent chunk of personas. And really, I don't blame any person for going after the segment of people who watch those folks, regardless of their enjoyment levels. Hog is an example of someone I respect in his coverage of Diablo 4. Before release, he was super excited for it and was hollering from the rooftops about the return of the king in the form of Blizzard and the Diablo franchise. When it released, though, he did not find himself having fun and realized all the glaring issues he had with the game. He was vocal about them in quite entertaining ways. As far as I know, he coined the hilariously appropriate phrase, "This isn't Diablo 4, it's Lilith 1." Now, with the release of Season 2, he gave the game a fair shot again and has raised its status straightforwardly. It's not D4 bad anymore, it's D4 mid now. I respect him for how he's approaching Diablo 4. Truly. Then there's the slightly smaller content creator, Quinn69, who's just walloping around. And then there's the big man himself, Asmongold, who knows exactly what's lucrative in the scene. He has admitted as much himself. He was only planning to play Season 2 for a day for content. But thanks to all the good changes Blizzard made, and the marketing they've done for said changes, he'd probably give it a longer go. That's exactly what's happened, and he has played on the D4 has changed for the better strategy in all the content he's making around the game. Asmongold's stream titles are unrivaled. They bring people in. This man knows exactly what he's doing. And then his wonderful editors double, triple down on everything and craft the best YouTube thumbnails and titles around. Regardless of how these three examples are approaching Diablo 4, if you're a creator, go for the gold. Highlight Diablo 4. Give it another chance. Praise Blizzard where they've done well, critique them where they've gone wrong and could improve, and please, please, please start funneling this type of goodwill to other developers too. Else the bulk of the gaming population will continue, forevermore, to be entranced by every single Blizzard product and not give other games, developers, and publishers a fair shot. Chapter 3. The Plight of Other Games. The majority of gaming titles do not receive any real chances beyond their first. This is a sorry state of affairs to be in, but it's the reality. Blizzard has built themselves up to be a formidable player in the gaming industry, despite failure after failure, and because of their past success, they're given seemingly near unlimited chances. Look at Overwatch 2 and that entire debacle. Sure, there's been a ton of backlash and negative press, but there's still a huge number of players queuing up and buying microtransactions on Steam and not. How about Heroes of the Storm and Warcraft 3 Reforged? A beloved niche game destroyed because it was not profitable enough, and a beloved classic remastered simply to be profitable, and ending up causing much more harm to Blizzard than good. I don't play World of Warcraft, but I feel like I do due to all the videos I've listened to about it. And that entire situation seems to be loss after loss for Blizzard up until very recently. Maybe they'll turn it around, but would any of those extra chances be afforded by so many people to games like Guild Wars 2, The Elder Scrolls Online, or New World? I mean, You could also pull a Final Fantasy XIV and annihilate your game and build it from the ground up to really earn that second chance, but that's not likely either. Then there's Diablo 4, which was Blizzard's best-selling game of all time and seen by the most vocal members of the gaming community as a boring mess at launch. I've outlined scores of the reasons earlier. It's a chunky list. My fellow exiles and heroes of myriad realms. Imagine another company fully launching a different game in the same state Diablo 4 was launched in by Blizzard. A company without as much renown, a company without the legacy, a company without as much financial backing. They'd be eaten alive, the game would die, and the company would die with it. Path of Exile officially launched in 2013 after 2 years of public beta testing. Arguably, they lacked some of the fundamentals Diablo 4 lacks today, namely a compelling endgame loop, challenging boss encounters, and a well-built crafting system. However, they addressed that over time and proved they were the game to beat in the ARPG space years ago. It has been 10 years since PoE launched. Why didn't Blizzard take some of their ideas, steal them blatantly, then slightly recolor them in an improved way? I'm simply shocked they refused to. Or how about we look at last Epoch? This is supposed to be the next big ARPG release, now officially slated for a February 21st, 2024 release date. The 11th Hour Games developers have been working on Last Epoch since 2017 and have been extremely public about its development. They've pushed back its release numerous times because they know they need to get their official launch right and ensure their game has all the fundamentals of a modern day ARPG. It'll have crafting, it'll have deep items, it'll have multiple endgame activities, it'll have a good set of bosses, it'll have compelling character class and skill choices. Any ARPG launching today should have these things. Diablo 4 didn't, but it's going to get a second, third, fourth. You know what I'm saying. It's going to get chance after chance because it's attached to that sweet, sweet Blizzard name. We should remember where Blizzard began. They were tiny, scrappy, like many of these newer developers trying to grow into titans. Grinding Gear Games is going to try and run 2 ARPGs at once. This is their next step into becoming the next actually good version of Blizzard. Support them. 11th Hour Games is about to take their first big step into the scene with Last Epoch's official release. Support them and give the game a chance. If it's not what you expect it to be, don't throw it out forever. Return and give it another shot when the developers say they've improved it. Plenty of other games will be releasing too. A sequel to the beloved Titan Quest ARPG is coming soon. Grim Dawn is getting another expansion. I really need to try out that game. Torchlight Infinite is in active development and is turning heads of some ARPG players. There's even a secret ARPG in development by original Diablo creators and their new studio, Moon Beast Productions. In this era of live service, give constantly developed games more chances than one, even if they're not leached onto a mega corporation. The results, if the developers are hardworking, intelligent, and passionate, can be phenomenal. Chapter 4. What can be done? There we have it. We've outlined all the problems with this Blizzard paradox. Players play Blizzard games. Players say Blizzard games are bad. Players return to Blizzard games because they're Blizzard, and they once made the best games in the industry. They can market the absolute hell out of their properties. They have the pull. Truly, Asmongold said it best. We are always just a single Blizzard expansion trailer away for Diablo 4, to everybody praising Diablo 4 once more, and buying the expansion, and paying Blizzard more and more money. He's right, but not all games can afford this level of marketing perfection. However, all games can change. They can get better over time, especially in this era of live service. Because of that fact, we should give them another chance. This shouldn't only be limited to games made by companies like Blizzard, who can get innumerable eyes on their products because of their legacy and the massive amount of marketing and monetary incentive involved. They might still make the most godly cinematics around, but do they still make the greatest games? One of the best videos I've seen of late was Rax saying he would seriously be trying out non-Blizzard properties and learning them so he could teach others about them. That was great to see, and his presence in those communities is going to bring a ton of good to them. Those other companies, the ones that Rax is helping, the ones that others could help, need the chance to prove themselves, to become the next Goliaths. If their games are good, guess who can become the Kingmaker? Us. Here's to the future, fellow Kingmakers. Let's support the developers who craft the best games for us to play, care about our time in their worlds, and truly seek to make compelling titles first and cash second. Cheers to grinding your games and their ascension to godhood through the creation of Path of Exile, Path of Exile 2, and Path of Exile Mobile. Cheers to 11th Hour Games and their tireless work on a community-founded and funded ARPG, Last Epoch. Cheers to all the games upcoming that we'll have the pleasure of playing, from the secrets hidden by Moonbeast Productions to the almost here Grim Dawn expansion and Titan Quest 2. But also, credit where it's due. Cheers to Blizzard, especially the Blizzard North of yonder years, who created this wondrous genre of game, spawned a legacy that will last multiple lifetimes, and still manages to bring millions of people together every day, through playing games or bringing about deep and complex discussions like this one. If the Blizzard paradox remains true, Blizzard will continue to win, and all other games will continue to lose. However, us Kingmakers have the ability to change that. Let's make it happen. Now that was an absolute banger to make. Thank you for watching, and an even larger thanks to every single person who supports this channel via a Patreon or YouTube membership. I'm eternally grateful you're helping my channel grow. As always, remember there's already a ton of Path of Exile and Beyond content here and on the way.